Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Wills, and I'm the VP of Professional Services for Nortech. And today I'm going to talk to you about the specific cost differences between 365 and on-premise Exchange. If you have any questions as we go along, just go ahead and chime in. And we'll also have some time at the end. So if you have any questions, you can pipe up at the end too, and we can answer them as we go along. So we're going to cover the cost of the migration and licensing for on-premise, as well as the migration and subscription costs for Office 365. And I've been putting together these cost comparisons for some of our customers, and I thought it'd be useful to put it into a webinar format so we can kind of get more people to see that. And I've actually delivered this presentation once before. We got so much interest in it that we wanted to rerun it again. So as I said before, it's not just the cost of the email with Exchange on-premise versus in the cloud. There's also a lot of additional functionality that you get from using 365. So as we go through this presentation, don't think about just email. Think about the SharePoint functionality, the OneDrive functionality, Lync for instant messaging, all these extras that you get also, because some of these things are things that people have held off on because it's just not in the budget to add the extra servers and services to support that. So without getting into too much more detail, let's just go ahead and jump in and take a look at some of the scenarios that I've put together for you. So the decision that we're trying to make here is, do we keep Exchange on-premise or do we put it in the cloud? And in this case, it is Exchange on-premise or Office 365 with Exchange Online. So Exchange Online is a portion of Office 365. With the on-premise system, you're basically going to be responsible for maintaining all the servers and the licensing and all that stuff that goes with that. And in the examples that I have in this presentation, those are going to be reflected as outsourced costs, as if you were hiring somebody to do that. It's important to remember that even if you do this stuff in-house, there's going to be costs for doing it that way too. Either you've got somebody who's dedicated to doing it, or somebody's getting pulled away from other tasks in order to manage Exchange and take care of mailboxes and people's email problems. So this work has to be done, whether it's you or it's somebody else that's doing that work. It's got to be done. So a couple disclaimers. I went through and I rechecked the pricing from the last time we ran through this just to make sure that's still current, and it is. So if you're watching the recorded version of this, the pricing in this presentation is current as of October 2nd. And as with anything in IT, prices are going to change, and you can to some extent lock it in with an annual subscription. But you need to kind of recheck this. If you're thinking about this 6 months from now, you need to recheck and make sure that the pricing is still accurate. And also the prices that are here are estimates. So we can provide more accurate pricing upon request. Just consider these budgetary estimates for now, and then we could have a more detailed discussion and come up with a more accurate estimate for you if we need to. So let's talk about usage profiles. What a usage profile is. Basically, some of your users are not going to require all of the functionality that's offered by, say, an E3 license. And if they don't, then you're going to be able to save a lot of money by not paying for the services that you don't need. What they're using is that usage profile. As you move up in Office 365 plans, the cost is going to go up. And giving users only the level that they need based on their usage profile is a really good way to control your IT costs. So the way that it works is each user is going to be assigned a license in your Office 365 portal. And basically what this means is you can mix and match. It's literally just a checkbox which license you're going to assign to each user. And that means that you're only spending money where you need to. If they only need email, you can pay for just that. If the user needs a local copy of Office Professional Plus, then check that box for the E3, and they're gonna get that added. So that kind of gives away that there's different plans and there's different costs that are associated with each. So before we get too much further, let's jump into some of the differences, because I want you to understand what the differences look like between the different licensing levels before we get into too much of the costs. So the biggest difference that you're going to see between the E1 and the E3 level of the licensing is the desktop version of Office that comes with the E3 license. So you're still going to get Office with an E1 license, but it's just an online version that can be launched with a browser. So you can still trade documents and work, and collaborate with people who have an E1 license. They just can't install the Office locally on their machine. Also, with regards to the local copy of that Office that you put on the E3 users' desktops, the upgrades to the software while you're paying for the subscription are included. So if Office comes out with a new version of Office, if Microsoft comes out with a new version of Office, you're entitled to that new version. All you have to do is just install it and use it. So you're always going to have the latest software and features without purchasing the upgrade, and you don't have to worry about that huge outlay of cost every time you upgrade Office. With the E1 and the E3, you're going to get the Exchange Online Mail, which includes spam filtering, malware scanning. So if you've got a Postini or some sort of locally installed thing on your Exchange server to do spam and malware scanning, you don't need that anymore. Everything goes through the Microsoft Online Services. You also get Lync, which is going to be used for conferencing and instant messaging. You can also do video with that, like one-to-one with another user. You can do video, and your users can save files into the cloud using OneDrive. So Microsoft is now giving 1 terabyte per user for OneDrive. I mean, this is massive because you can configure this so that the documents are automatically synced from their workstations to OneDrive, which gives you kind of a backup. And it also allows them to access those files from anywhere. So they can just log into the web portal for OneDrive, and they can add and remove files from their OneDrive. They're also including SharePoint, which allows file sharing and collaboration with other team members. And I mean, SharePoint offers a lot more than just the typical file share. People are used to saving stuff out on their S drive or their H drive or whatever. This is so much more than that. There's tons of collaboration features with SharePoint that can dramatically change the way that your users are working together. We have a question out there. Is everybody hearing me okay? Just pipe up on the IM if you're not able to hear okay. Okay, I'm good. Okay, good, great. All right, sounds like everybody's doing okay. All right, let's go ahead and keep moving forward with this. Okay, so I just flipped my slides. Okay. All right. So that's about it for this one. Let's move on to the next page of this feature of the features. Does anybody have any questions on the stuff that we've gone over here, or what you're seeing on your screen right now? If so, just go ahead and just unmute yourself and talk, because it's easier than flipping back and forth with the IM. Nope. Okay. All right. One more slide on the feature comparison, and then we'll go ahead and get into the cost stuff. So as we get closer to the bottom of the list, you can start to see more of the differences between the E1 and the E3. Office Online, which I mentioned earlier, it's just the Office applications running from any web browser. You can do this with both the E1 and the E3 license. But the mobile applications, which are apps that are running on a device like a smartphone or an iPad, that's only available for the E3 plan users. And then some of the more advanced email functionality is included only with the E3 licensing. So as you go through, you really need to think about whether or not you need these features. And the great thing about software as a service, which is essentially what Office 365 is, you get a clear picture of how much your bells and whistles cost because they're part of your subscription. And you can kind of decide based on what level you need, how much money you're going to be spending. So any feature questions before we move forward into the pricing and the other couple of licenses? Okay. All right, so I built the presentation here on the E1 and the E3 license comparison, but there's a couple other licenses. So I want to just kind of go over these really quickly. The first one that I wanted to talk about is a small business premium license. Now the major limitation to this is that only 25 users can be signed up on this plan. So if you ever need to exceed your 25 users, you're going to have to change to a different plan. It's not going to scale. And if you need to change it later, you're not going to lose data. But if you have plans that you're going to exceed 25 in short order, you should really start with a different license so you don't have to make that change. And then also with, as with any lower cost license, there's going to be limitations, which is not necessarily a bad thing because it translates into a lower cost for you. But you're not going to get any Active Directory integration, so you're going to have to use a different logon to access Office 365. There's no Yammer, which is basically like Facebook, except it's specific to your company. And then, like with the E1 subscription, there's not going to be any advanced email functions, and that's the stuff like legal hold, archiving, information rights management, and things like that. But you do get the desktop version of Office. So the pricing for the small business premium is currently $12.50 per user per month. Okay, the second non-enterprise subscription that I wanted to show you is the mid-size business license. This one's going to cost more than the small business license, but it's less than an E3, and it has most of the E3 plan functionality. So there's still no Yammer, still no advanced email, all that, archiving, legal hold, stuff like that. And it's limited to 300 users. You do get Office for your local workstations with the mid-size business license, and this one costs $15 per user per month. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea between the difference of the licenses, and there's more licenses that are available. So if these don't meet your needs, or if you're not sure, what's right for you, we can talk with you over, what features you need and what functionality you need, and kind of help you choose that. So, feel free to contact us if you want to do that, or get a demo of the different functionalities. So any questions on licensing before we move forward to the actual examples? Nope. Okay. All right, the first example I've got here is 25 users on the E3 plan. And I also included in the estimate the outsourced messaging management, this is a Nortec specific offering. It gives you monthly reporting. It gives you performance monitoring, security analysis, and utilization analysis. We also do customer advocacy, and basically what this means is that you don't need to contact Microsoft and have the geek speak with them on what's going on with your email. We provide unlimited management with Microsoft so that you don't have to. If you have a problem, you call us, and we take care of it from there. Also, as we go through this, I want to point out that we're showing the pricing for Exchange on-premise only, but Office 365 is giving you a lot more than just Exchange. What we talked about before, and right from the beginning, the OneDrive, the Lync, the SharePoint, all that stuff that you get. So as you go through that, as we go through this, kind of keep that in mind as well. Okay, with any migration, there's going to be some one-time costs. And basically what we've got is the one-time cost for this 25 user migration and the 25 licenses of Office Professional Plus. And as you look down the column here, you can really see that a lot of the cost is tied up in the Office license. And as a 365 subscriber, you don't have to purchase Office. It's part of your subscription. So it doesn't show up as a one-time cost. You're kind of paying for that as you go along. And you also get the ability to install Office on other devices. Each user gets 5 licenses with it. So if they want to install it on their home machine so that they can work on stuff at home, they can do that. If they want to install it on a tablet so they can work from their iPad, they can do that too. Looking over on the Office 365 side, the cloud side, I've got the header cloud on that. You can see that the one-time costs are very low. Basically what you're paying for is those migration costs, and then you just start paying the monthly subscription, which is kind of nice because instead of doing this upgrade where you've got to buy a new server, you've got to buy new licensing, you've got to buy all this stuff, you're just kind of jumping in and paying for stuff over time. It's a lot less painful. The recurring costs are a little bit different between the two also. And the first thing that we really need to look at is the Exchange support on the left-hand side on the on-premise side. This is based on someone coming to work on your Exchange server 1/2 of a day per month. And with all the patching and troubleshooting, the health checking, any issues that your users have, all that is a lot of work that needs to be done, and so this is actually a pretty conservative number. On the Office 365 side, there's 2 numbers. The first is the annual cost for 365, and you're actually going to pay for it monthly, so you don't have to pay all of it at once. But just for ease of running through these tables, I included it as an annual cost. And then the second charge on the cloud side is that Nortec messaging management service that I mentioned before. So any questions on the recurring charges or the one-time charges before we take a look at the graph and see what it looks like over 5 years? No? Okay. All right, so here's the graphical representation of what it looks like for 5 years. And I picked this 5-year point because after 5 years, the current version of Exchange is going to be out of mainstream support. The hardware is going to be probably out of support unless you purchased extended support for it. So basically, after 5 years, you're going to be due for an upgrade, and the whole thing's going to start over again. Unless you've moved to Office 365 and then those one-time charges aren't there, you just continue to pay the monthly subscription fees. So going across, you can see the annual costs are pretty similar, but the initial costs of doing the upgrade or the installation are going to carry across all the way to the end. So that whole 5-year period, you're going to be living with that initial expense. So any questions on this before we move on to the next one?
Kevin, do you know how long it takes? Like, how long would it take, do you think, to move someone over?
To move 25 users from Exchange Online to Exchange, from Exchange On-Prem to Exchange Online can be done in just a couple of days. It really doesn't take very much time at all.
Okay.
And the way that we lay out our projects, they're fixed costs. So even if it takes us extra time to do that, we basically do the project as a fixed charge, so you know what you're going to pay up front for it. And that's actually reflected in the migration costs that I put in the tables.
Okay.
Okay. All right, the second example I've got here is 25 users that are on the E1 plan. And then going back to what we were talking about before, remember that the biggest difference, not the only difference, but the biggest difference between the E1 and the E3 is that you're not going to have the Office Professional Plus desktop license. You'll have to use Exchange Online. A lot of the other stuff, the Lync Online, the SharePoint Online, all that stuff is still available to them. We've also got the outsourced messaging management included with this. So for one-time costs, Office Professional Plus licenses have been removed. Also, the client access license for Exchange has been changed to a standard license. And this is basically because the standard CAL of Exchange is going to provide similar functionality to the E1 plan, and the Enterprise CAL is going to be similar to the E3. Everything else is going to remain the same because the migration is going to have to be done no matter what. Whether you're going to the cloud or you're going to a newer version of Exchange, you're still going to have to do that. Okay, so other than the subscription fees, the recurring costs are similar between the E1 and the E3. And actually, the costs for the on-premise side are identical because that single server, putting that single server in and managing that single server, this is basically the bare minimum. It's going to have to be, something's going to have to be done to manage 25 users, no matter who those 25 users are. And then you can see on the subscription services side for 365, it's significantly lower because the licenses are cheaper. So let's take a look at the 5-year graph for this. So here's what this looks like over 5 years. And you might notice here that the overall cost is the difference is even bigger between on-premise and 365 than it was with E3. And this is mainly because of that minimum infrastructure requirement that you have to have a server there that you're managing and patching and licensing in order to support even just 25 users. And this really goes back to what we talked about initially, understanding the features of the plan, buying the right size plans for each user. You can lower your costs just by purchasing and assigning the correct plan to your individual users. And again, like we talked about before, it's a checkbox. So if you want to change somebody to an E1 license, it's a checkbox. It's very easy to do. Okay, I've got one more example, and this one is a hybrid, and this shows what it looks like if you've got a mix of users. So what I did here is I've got 25 users on the E1 plan, 25 users on the E3 plan. So we've basically got a mixed usage profile. I just split it half and half to keep it simple. Everything else is going to be the same between the two examples that I've already showed you. So outsourced messaging management, Lync Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive, all that is the same as it was for the two previous examples. So one-time costs are going to be similar to the previous examples. You'll notice that there's 25 Office licenses, not 50, but only 25, which is for those E3 plan users to compare with the E3 plan users. Also, the migration costs are going to be slightly higher for both examples. And this is really just due to the number of users that have to be migrated. It costs more to migrate more users. And then you can see the CALs. I split out between the enterprise and the standard CALs, 25 and 25, to correlate with the E1 versus E3. All right, and then let's look at the recurring costs for that. Okay, so I split out the E1 and the E3 so that you can see there 25 E1 licenses, less than half the cost of E3. Just another example of buy the right license for the right user, because you can save a lot of money for doing that. On the on-premise side, we've slightly increased the cost of the Exchange support and also your email spam and malware, and basically just to support the additional users. That cost is going to go up. Same thing on the cloud side with the outsourced messaging management. That cost is going to go up a little bit. More users, more cost. So here's what this looks like over 5 years. And even in that mixed example, Office 365 comes out ahead. And again, like we talked about through the whole presentation here, it's not just Exchange that we're providing when we go to 365. It's all that other functionality, the OneDrive, the SharePoint, the Lync, and all that stuff. And if you're thinking about buying storage, like expanding storage because you don't have room to store users' files, something to think about is you get that OneDrive there, you get that SharePoint there, you're already paying for that space. You can move stuff in there, and you can you can save money by moving stuff into there and storing it there instead of buying new storage. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through and thinking about whether or not to take this on. So any questions on any of those 3 examples? Hopefully this has made sense the way things are laid out. And if you have any questions that didn't come up as part of this, if you didn't want to ask on the during the presentation or anything like that, feel free to contact us directly, and we can have another discussion about it and give you some more detail on whatever you have questions about. Okay, I'm going to show you one more thing here. We also have a desktop management piece that we offer. This isn't really related directly to Office 365, but it's an offering that we've got with regards to desktop management. And this is kind of similar to the messaging management. We give you asset inventory, monthly reporting. You get unlimited remote professional services. This wouldn't cover on-site visits, but if somebody has an issue and they call in and we can resolve it over the phone, that's included. We provide performance and security analysis on the workstations that are part of that. And all of that is a fixed monthly cost. So it's $13.55 per desktop. So if you're looking for a solution around that, if you want to offload more of the management of your IT systems, that I just want to make you aware that's out there. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about anything that we talked about here?
Kevin, I just wanted to, this is Allison, I just wanted to mention with all this extra functionality that you're getting with Office 365, all these different features, Nortech will work with you to make sure that all of your users get up to speed on how these different features can be integrated into your business.
Absolutely, that's a great point, Allison. We do training as part of this, and it can be either informal and we also do formal training where we can provide materials and actual sessions where we sit people down and go through the functions, and it's all customized to how you use Office 365, how your company uses it. So great point. Any other questions or comments out there? If not, that's all I've got. And again, if you do have any questions that you wanted to ask but didn't want to ask here, contact your Nortech sales rep or George. I've got his contact information up on the slide here, or you can contact me directly as well, kwills@nortech.com.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day.